what if I had everybody on my team really focused on the idea of pursuing their personal dreams? And so therefore, what we did at work was just the fuel to that. When we have our people focused on, figuring out how to accomplish dreams, that's the exact same skill set that it takes for them to handle and tackle a business problem. Right. And I think that's what leaders want on their team, are a bunch of solution finders, people that recognize a problem and immediately attack it.
You're listening to the Sherpa Leadership Podcast, your guide to climbing higher in life and leadership. I'm Reed Moore, and alongside Chase Williams, we're here to help you break through obstacles, scale your potential, and lead with greater clarity and purpose. Leaders, welcome back. You're here with Chase and I on the Sherpa Leadership Podcast. And as always, we love for you to like, subscribe, go to YouTube, or go to the favorite place that you have to be able to listen to podcasts. And we're here to help you climb higher in life and leadership. To that end, we have an amazing guest today. We're so grateful to be able to share this really good friend of a really good friend with you. As we work through the iServe model, today we're really just diving in to this idea of engaging and developing others. So Chase, what do we got?
Well, we have an incredible guest for you today, Mr. Dane Espegard. And of course, Dane is an amazing husband, a father of 3 girls, lives outside of Austin, Texas. And Dane has kind of grew up in the Cutco world and actually manages and runs the largest division of Cutco. He's a real estate investor, and he's really passionate about helping others with their dreams. And so, Dane, I'll let you speak a little bit to that, but we're so excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Yeah. Happy to be here. Yeah, we got connected by our mutual great friend, Mr. Mike Monroe. And right when we talked, I was like, this is perfect, right? Because you guys obviously align quite a bit with the idea of the dreams mentality. And,
oh, yeah.
And that's why Mike connected us. But I had the opportunity to hear a great speaker, Matthew Kelly, I don't know what it was, 20 years ago now or close to that, speak on the concept of dreams. And I was a participant in his keynote message, but through that was really interactive and kind of engaging the audience on, what would light you up in the future. And so that was my first experience making my own dreams list or bucket list. And that has then evolved and been a journey for me. And I implemented some of those things into my team back in 2007 and then in 2013, and then evolved it ever since then. And I had the opportunity to write a book and share what we've been doing with dreams in our business and launched that back in 2021.
Awesome. And so you can get that book. It's called Dream Machine, and I saw it on Amazon and got it on order. And when we first connected and just started talking about this, it really piqued my interest because this whole idea of leadership, right, is I'm leading somebody somewhere. And maybe one of the ways that you can think about leadership is people are hiring you to help them get somewhere in their life. So walk us through kind of how you landed on this idea of dreams and how you now think about this as a leader.
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I went and had the experience of going through the dream stuff to begin with, it was like most things at a personal growth seminar where it was like, really exciting for 2 weeks. And then I settled back into doing the exact same stuff that I'd done before. And then I introduced it to my team, but we didn't really do a lot with it other than just talk about dreams for, a couple of weeks. And then it went on my shelf. And then back in 2013, really at the end of 2012, I had the opportunity to move again within the business and start a team from scratch for the 3rd time. And at that point, that's when I really tried to get intentional with the culture aspect and said, I've now started a business from scratch twice. What were the wins? What were the losses of that? What did I love about my team? What would I have had different? And so moving in 2012, I moved from Omaha, Nebraska up to the Twin Cities in Minneapolis. And I approached the build, if you will, from the standpoint of, if this is the last team that I ever build, and I'm excited to be not just on the team, but leading the team for the rest of my professional career, what would I want that culture to be? And that's where I settled back on, I went through all my notes from the past seminars and books and all that, and I settled back on the concept of dreams. And so that's the thing that had always excited me the most if it was in front of me, but often it wasn't. And so I got to the idea of, well, what if I had everybody on my team really focused on the idea of pursuing their personal dreams? And so therefore, what we did at work was just the fuel to that. And, being in the business that I was in and still am with Cutco, nobody comes to us and says, "Oh, I'm so glad I found you. I've for the last 10 years, I've been looking for a job in cutlery." Right. So it's not nobody ends up on our team because it's a passion. And so with a role where my job was recruiting, training, and developing, and then hopefully retaining people from 18 to 22 into their 30s, the challenge was always a lot of times we'd lose our best people, like a lot of businesses, right? Your best person gets poached or they get sold a better, bigger vision somewhere else. And so for me, it was, hey, if it's not about the knives, what can it be about? And what I found with dreams for me was that, look, if I'm constantly focused on whatever the next exciting thing is in my life, that brings a lot of purpose to what I'm doing at Cutco, because in order for me to pursue these things, I either need more time autonomy, more finances, better health, right? Something in that ballpark. And so then work then becomes my vehicle to achieve the life of my dreams instead of my purpose in life. And I think that discernment for me as a leader was key. And so that's what we kind of seeded our new organization with at the beginning of 2013. And then from there, I didn't know what I was doing in 2013. I was just like, I'm going to live my dreams out loud in front of my team and help them make their list and just kind of hope that works. And that was our 1.0 version. And then we've pivoted and added 2.0, 3.0 ever since then.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So Dane, I'm curious, right? Like as you share this, it seems like on the nose, it seems so obvious, right? From a leadership perspective, it would seem like, okay, well, part of our job as a leader is to help people accomplish their dreams. And yet my hallucination is that's not actually common for leaders to connect to or to build an organization around. Why do you think that is? And tell me a little bit about how you connected all the dots to say, okay, this is actually something that people will care enough about that creates the attractiveness in recruiting, the retention of your best people. Because, gosh, it sounds obvious, but I look around and I don't see a lot of organizations that are as intentional as you are about this topic.
Yeah. I think great question. And I think that the biggest challenge of why is this not the thing in every business is it's really difficult for this to be the main thing, right? So when we're running a business, most businesses, in my experience, are operating more likely in reactive mode than proactive mode. And so if we're in reactive mode, it's impossible for us to be focused on dreams and all that because we've got to be focused on what has to get done today, putting out the fires, handling the situations that arise. And so I think with this, it's such a forward thing to say, hey, pretend the business is humming. What's going to keep our people here? And that's where I think that this comes in. For me, it was, I just knew. So Matthew Kelly, when he talks about, in his book, The Dream Manager, in that book, they have a salaried position for somebody to do just this. And I think that's an answer for a lot of businesses. If somebody has the funding to say, hey, we're going to pay somebody a nice salary, and this is all they're going to do, you could write a check and have this be the case. That wasn't the situation for me. I was young. I was in my mid-20s. I was bootstrapping my business. And so I had to figure out, well, how can I still have this be the culture and not shell out big dollars for this? And the only answer, and really I would say this is the answer even if somebody has a big budget, which is the leader has to live it. And so I had to be committed to saying, which is right in line with what I read with your guys' leadership model, which is I had to be the living, breathing example of pursuing the life of your dreams. And what was interesting with that concept is, there's this thing within leadership that I've noticed that I was attracted in my business to stay in my business by other individuals that were 3, 4, 5, 10 years ahead of me, right? They appeared as though they were living a great life, making good money. They had awesome, vibrant teams. I didn't really know, right? But that's what it appeared to me to be the case. And that's what attracted me to stay and build a business post-college here. And then as I started experiencing that same success, I started dimming my light around the people on my team. In other words, if I was going to take an epic vacation, I wouldn't share it necessarily because in my mind, there's this element of like, well, I know that maybe the people on my team can't afford the same trip, or they don't have the same time autonomy that I do. And so there was a part of me that would want to shield a little bit of that. And what I wasn't recognizing that I was doing is I was dimming the light that would attract my best people to stay with me for a while. Once I had the framework of dreams, it gave me permission to live my life authentically out loud, because I would, hey, I'm helping you live, try and pursue your dreams. I'm taking a trip. It's on my dreams list. And what happened is the team would be really excited about me going out of town and doing these things, because there was that reciprocity, because they knew if I was talking to them about a sales goal, it wasn't because, hey, we need you to sell this. It was, hey, when you accomplish this, what's the dream on your list that you're pursuing? Is it a down payment on a house? Is it a vacation? Is it something else that you're looking to do? And so by me living it out loud also enabled my people to pursue some of those things as well. And in turn, I was able to start retaining some of that top talent that I had lost in previous years.
Man, I love that.
That's a big aha.
So let me ask you this question. When it comes to people writing down their dreams and using your product to do that, which is fantastic, by the way, how do you navigate as a leader dreams that may be, how would you say this? Maybe somebody else's dream, right? Like they see the yacht, they see the airplane. They're maybe not mature enough to actually realize that they literally don't care about that or don't want that. How do you coach them into thinking about dreams that are actually important to them?
There's part of that I think they have to come to that on their own. And through the exercise, like when we take a team through this, it's an abundance exercise. So I want those things on their dreams list, right? I think the more things that are on their list, the better. The way that we describe somebody's dreams list is that all the things on there, if they were to ever happen through the course of your life, you'd get energy from it, right? So that could be a yacht. That could be, and I think people's lists change. So my first list, I was 22 and I made it. It absolutely had yacht. It had every luxury car that you could think of, because I was 22 and ambitious, and I thought those were all of the things, right? My list today as a 40-year-old is very different than it was as a 22-year-old. And I always describe the list as it's a living document. So it's okay to look at your list and say, I don't remember putting that on there. That doesn't interest me anymore. I'm going to get rid of that thing. And so we ask people to, through the brainstorming process, to try and get 100, 200. I have people on my team that have over 1,000 dreams on their list.
Wow.
So we really get into the weeds with them. And then the last part, though, is, okay, well, let's find a dream or two that you think is attainable within the next 3 to 6 months. But they're not going to pick the yacht. So that might live on, their list for years. But what I do notice is first time somebody does this, just like goal setting, right? They're choosing something that's maybe much smaller. And as they achieve more, they reach a little bit bigger. They get, the whole Sherpa idea, right? It's like they get to this summit and then they can see the next and say, oh, okay, well, maybe now I can do those things. And so I think that there's a natural filtering process to it that I haven't found myself ever needing to, say, hey, I don't know if that should be on the list, or is that really yours? So I think people kind of figure it out on their own as they go through it.
Awesome.
Love that, because I think like the deeper value to me seems to be, it's not the yacht that is most important. I mean, it may be to them, but it's most important that they know you care about helping them achieve whatever's on their list, whatever their dreams are in whatever time frame. So I'd love to ask you, Dane, I have to imagine the culture that comes from this, and tell us about how it permeates other powerful parts of a culture, like celebrating someone's wins, or this collaboration, or even just personal relationships of people celebrating each other in their progress. How does that actually show up?
The connections that are made through a team that has this at the core is exceptional. And it's because they're no longer just working next to somebody and doing the normal, hey, how was the weekend, right? Like those conversations. And I've had the opportunity now to take different companies and teams through this. And it's even in the initial workshop, we do the brainstorming portion, which is very individual. It's, head down, they're cranking out all their things. But then in that, we have them do what's called sharing and stealing. And so we'll have, small groups of 4 or 5 people. And it's neat because sometimes they're in the same department. They work next to each other. Sometimes it's someone that's, hey, this person's in accounting, this person's in sales. They don't, maybe they don't talk to each other regularly. But they're not just saying, hey, hello. What they're doing is they're sharing 3, 4, 5 dreams from a health category, 3, 4, 5 dreams from travel, from family, from legacy. And so it's one of those things where it forces, is maybe a bad word, but invites them to go deep really quickly. And, it's not one of those cheesy icebreakers or those kind of things. They get to choose what they want to share. And it's really comfortable. But then that also gives everybody in the team the invitation to be vulnerable and to be themselves in the workplace. And then when people on our team are accomplishing dreams, if it's a private one, I'll ask, hey, are you okay with me sharing this and recognizing you're on the team? And it's on our team, it's almost always yes. Yeah, I'd love that. And we love celebrating people's dreams because that's also one of the easiest ways for somebody to experience joyful accountability, right? And it's not, if Chase accomplishes a dream, it's not, Reed, get back to your dreams, man. What are you doing? But me recognizing Chase to say, hey guys, before we get started on our quarterly meeting or our monthly sales meeting or whatever, I just want to go through and recognize all the people on our team that have accomplished a dream within the last couple of months. And we recognize them because as we mentioned before, our business motto is living a life of our dreams and inspiring others to do the same. So before we get into the sales numbers, let's talk about the most important thing, which is our team advancing. And so we'll recognize Chase for something, and then Reed over here is like, I got to look back at my dreams list, right? So it's just the friendly nudge to say, oh, I've been off my game a little bit, or what's the next one I'm going to do?
Man, I love that. So good.
The other one I will add is problem solving. So I would love to say that I knew that was going to be the case when I started doing this, but that'd be a lie. But what I have noticed is that when we have our people focused on, figuring out how to accomplish dreams, that's the exact same skill set that it takes for them to handle and tackle a business problem, right? And I think that's what leaders want on their team are a bunch of solution finders, people that recognize a problem and immediately attack it instead of the person that gets stuck with it or waits for somebody else to solve it. Well, if I'm coaching somebody on my team separate of what their role is, but just saying, hey, let's talk about how to accomplish that dream, that's the exact same process that we would go through to talk about, hey, how can we handle this business problem? And so the flip of this is it's getting our people really focused on being solution finders because they benefit in their personal lives. And then they're just used to, how do I do this instead of, I don't think we can do this, right? Because that's the dreams conversation. When somebody says, I want to do this dream, it's, that's a big one. Let's figure out how we can do that, right? That's always going to be the go-to.
So Dane, I love, you said earlier that like this initial process is kind of like this write everything down abundance style kind of thinking, which I love. I love this idea of adding gasoline to abundance thinking inside of an organization, period. And occasionally you run into these people that maybe have a hard time dreaming, maybe haven't like given themselves permission to dream the way that you're talking about in abundance. How do you guide someone through that process if they're getting a little stuck or you feel them holding back? And then what value does that bring an organization and you as a leader and your influence with someone?
That is spot on. And I wouldn't have known that, or, you kind of just assume we look through life on our own lens, that everybody's similar to us. There are absolute gaps and differences in people's ability to dream. And I've had the opportunity again to do these workshops, and I can tell, this person's, they're stuck in the mud a little bit here. I did one with my mom, and this is before as I was getting ready to launch the book. And so I sat down with my mom and said, hey, Mom, I'd love to do this dreams, take you through some dreamstorming stuff that I do with teams. Would you be open to it? Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess so. And we were in a coffee shop, and the first 30 minutes was pulling teeth. and when I look back, it's like, well, it makes total sense. Like she was a teacher at that point, divorced, fixed income for the most part. She didn't see, she's in her 60s. She didn't see this big windfall of finances or any life movement changing. And so through that, it was like, well, I don't know. And she was very stuck on, I don't want to write it down because I don't know how that would happen. And so it was my mom, so I could use, a little bit more stern language, and it was one-on-one, but it was very much like, I need you to forget about how, when, how much money. I just want you to say, if I could have a second, and this, I wouldn't say this to most people, but if you could have a second shot at life, what would be the things that you'd want to do? And then it was, okay, she got some stuff down, she got more down, and then she started cruising. If I'm talking to a team, it's just, you kind of know, hey, this person on the team, they're a go-getter, they're a big thing. They're going to have no problem with the dreaming exercise. Then you have the person that's maybe wired a little bit more pessimistic or realistic. We'll call it that to be a little more generous. And that person does struggle a little bit with this. And what I find is that the whole thing should, in my opinion, should feel invitational, and there shouldn't be an obligation. Anytime there's an obligation on the dream stuff, I think we lose it. I think we lose what we're after when it comes to that. So there's no right amount that somebody has on the list, but at the end of the process, there are for sure people that only have 20, 30, 40 things down. But when I started doing this a bunch with my team, I did it once, and then I was like, well, I'm going to do it again for the new people that are on my team, but what about the people that have already been here? I guess they could sit through it again. And I thought it would be repetitive to them. And what I found is the second time they went through it, they added more than the first time. And it makes sense to me now when I look back where it's like, oh, well, it's just like any other skill. The more often we do it, the better we get at it. And so now I'll use the example often with people where it's like, if you haven't been to the gym in 5 to 10 years, the first time you go, everything is hard.
Yeah.
Right? The person who goes to the gym 5 times a week, nothing's hard. Right? It's just, they don't even think about it. They're like, this is easy. I'm going. And obviously their workouts hopefully are hard, but the idea of that concept. And it's the same thing. So if you haven't dreamt in 10 years or 15 years, this may be a little challenging for you. But it doesn't mean it's not worthwhile to get 20, 30 things down on paper.
Yeah.
And I'll find everybody, as long as we set up that kind of invitational, there's no obligation, have some fun with it. Nobody's checking your work. I think that's kind of the feel that I always try and have when I do it.
Love it. So let me ask you about the other side of that coin. And that is the person that they do nothing but dream, like dreams, and everything's like, and there's always a new dream, and maybe it's different than last week's dream. And it never goes from dream to reality because the level of consistency, effort, skill, all of the things that we need in the business for them to get there, don't materialize. How do you take the dream concept and distill it down into the practical elements of actually getting there?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'll regularly say is that obviously I'm not a believer in sitting in thought with no action.
Sure.
Right. But in order for us to have purposeful action, we have to have that purposeful thought time. So the balance of it, I think, is important. And there are people that just, they live up here. Right. And it's a lot of fun up here when there's no reality of, I got to go do the work. The last part, and this was from 2013 to call it 2018, first 5 years I was doing this like very, consistently with my team. What we didn't do at the end was the actual planning. And that's what we added in 2018. And that to me has kind of unlocked where it's at today. And so the last part of a dreams workshop that we do is we ask people to go through their whole list and say, hey, very intentional language, mark down, make a smaller list from that of anything that could be potentially in the cards, maybe within the next 12 months. So we put a bunch of qualifiers on it to say, just there's a shot at it. And then we give them space, because most people just won't do this if you do it later. So we give them space to say, I want you to actually do some research on these, right? And so let's say it's a trip. Cool. Do some research on when would you go, how much are flights, who do you want to go with? If it's a health thing, do some quick research, use ChatGPT, do whatever, find out what the actual steps would be for you to do that. And then in that moment, in a motivated state, we have everybody commit to something and take action. And so at the very end, everybody's booking something, signing up for a race, or if it's a health one, or they're, signing up for music lessons or doing something like that. So the goal is when they leave, it's already in action and they're going to accomplish their first dream because it's baked into the cake. A company that has been using our software for a while, I always love to shout them out because the CEO there does a phenomenal job organizing his team around this. The company's called Malk, M-A-L-K. It's like a smaller competitor of Silk and like the almond milk, oat milk type stuff. But it's a phenomenal product. They've been using our system since 2021. And the first time I went in and did a workshop, I had this idea, but I wasn't sure how he was going to take it. And I said, hey, Jason, it'd be really cool at the end of this if you wanted to support them with a dream. And he goes, I was already thinking about it. So his team, at that time, I think there was only 20 people or 15 people on the team. And at the very end, everybody was looking at committing to one. And right before they made the decision, I said, hey, and by the way, and we passed out envelopes. I don't remember what it was, 250 bucks. And it was basically like, this is from Jason Malk. It is, if you take action and you book something right now, here's $250 towards your dream. And for a lot of people's dreams, it's literally that. $200 would cover a dream.
Wow.
Right. And so he's been doing that regularly. I use dreams for sales contests, promotions, achievements, accomplishments, Christmas gifts. And so that's one of the ways that we make sure people are accomplishing dreams is, we pay for them.
Thanks everybody for tuning in to that episode with Dane Espegard. We hope you enjoyed it. We enjoyed it so much, we actually split it into 2 episodes. So we've got part 2 coming. If you want to connect with Dane, his program is called The Dreams Vault, and his book, we'll have information about that in the show notes. But we hope you enjoyed it. We sure did. And we'll see you on part 2 with Dane Espegard.
Take care, guys.